Hello, it's the 29th of April 2025. In 1972, on the 28th of April, there was a famous rock musician who released a single called Starman. Do you know who it was? Yes, it was David Bowie. And he released this single, and I think for a lot of us, it caught our attention. Those old days listening to this, in the sense that the lyrics described a situation where if a starman, an ET, were to come down on Earth, he would blow everyone's mind. It would be a shock to the whole system. It would mean that we would have to possibly rewrite much of our history, because it would suggest that they can come and go anytime they want. In my last video, I moved on to 5 categories that help us to frame exactly the truth content of any whistleblower testimony or any claims. There is a lot of nonsense and rubbish out there, because there's a lot of money to be made going to UFO conferences, ET conferences, saying you met the grand goddess of Venus, or you talked to the angelic creatures from the Pleiades, etc., etc. And of course, people will listen to this and soak it up and pay money to hear it. But in my own experience, I would say that just about 7% or 10% of any whistleblower testimony is correct, or witness testimony, or for that matter, video presentations of supposed UFO craft. It's possible to fake it with, as you know, with CGI. I'm going to talk about 6 important whistleblowers. Michael Sala, a PhD, well, it's the first one here. This board is really for me, but he's been at this game for a very long time. And what he tried to do, he tried to interview people, give them a chance to explain their own experience and to be able to describe what happened to them and try and dig into their testimony and trying to test it out. He didn't prejudge them, and he never said, "Oh, I think your stuff's rubbish." He just gave them a chance on his Exopolitics channel. In fact, he's got a number of channels, but you can find these videos on YouTube, and he does a weekly podcast. So I would recommend him for further research. He's been at this for many, many years, and he has produced books. One of them, which I'll just quickly grab here, and the US Navy Secret Space Program. I recommend it. It was very good reading. And it seems that, according to what he found out, the US Navy was approached by, I think, a good group of ETs who wanted to offset what we call the reptilian Draco control of our planet and our institutions and our banking sectors, and their infiltration into many, many religious groups and societies over hundreds of years. And so a group, I think they were from the Pleiades constellation, human-looking, approached the American Navy and started the Secret Space Program, which developed into Solar Warden, run by the US Navy. And this program was very successful, and the Navy ships patrol our solar system, and they try to keep unwanted visitors out, or they ask them to identify themselves. I think there was some kind of mixed reaction between the different armed forces, not only in the United States, but I would say Britain, France, many of the Western countries, and we could also probably include the Far East, and perhaps also South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, I would say Italy and some probably Russia as well. They had some of them joined to this operation. They outsourced some of their own personnel to come into this operation, and so there was a cooperation going on, overseen by the American Navy. The Air Force apparently had its own program, and Corey Good, who was was an ex-Solar Warden employee. He said that the Air Force had been compromised. However, I think in the last few years that's not the case. They've also cleaned their operation. So I recommend Michael Salla. Alex Collier, a famous contactee, he was contacted by a highly spiritual group, the Andromedans. Corey Good, ex-Solar Warden, he was an intuitive empath, and he was trained to sit with human beings when they were meeting extraterrestrials and find out if they were telling the truth by watching their body language and listening to them. Apparently, it seems that this is the case for all life in the universe. If you get face to face with them and meet minds and talk to them and through translators, if you have an intuitive empath with you, you can try to detect lies and misinformation. And Corrigan said that that all interviews conducted between the different ETs, all of them have their own intuitive empaths. So it would seem to me that they don't fully trust each other. Moving on, the fourth one that's I think important, and I will discuss in another video, is Kerry Cassidy. I had the good fortune to meet with her and have lunch with her in Turkey on the Bosphorus. And I have to say she was impressive. She came across as a very strong character, very gusty. She had avoided university, but had experience in the I believe the one or two of the media industries, and she was I would call it a kind of street fighter, and she's still on the go. She's quite brave and forthright, and she's not afraid of anybody, and she'll try to speak her truth. Now I came on to Eleanor Danan, and Eleanor Danan has become very famous in the last 2 years. She's a prolific writer and a very good artist. She was a former archaeologist working in Egypt. I think a lot of her work's good. There are I have one or two question marks about her, but I wish at the moment to recommend her YouTube videos on her channel, and I'll discuss her at a later point. The last person I would want to discuss with you would be Marshall V.N. Summers. He's been at this since the 1970s, 1980s. He was a former teacher of the blind, and he had his own experience, and he had a warning from what he says are higher beings that we would call angelic. And what they did was they said, no, all these different ET groups intervening in Earth's affairs are all out to place themselves here and conduct a long-term colonization program that would secure Earth under their auspices, even though they may appear to be good. He said that no, that freedom in the universe is extremely rare, and that you have to fight for it, and that if we get into long-term trading agreements with extraterrestrials and galactic groups and various trading organizations, we would lose our independence and become dependent on them. So he's the one that is kind of throwing a wrench in the whole works of the whole ET program. He's very skeptical. Now, with these people that I've mentioned, I cannot categorize any of them as being 100% correct. because what they offer is their testimony, their viewpoints, their perspectives, but I didn't experience what they experienced, and therefore I have to judge them. So I don't give any of them an alpha credit. That means I know it's 100% true, but what I give them is what I would call a beta credit, meaning their work is plausible. We should listen to it. They have something interesting to say. Is there something that we're not getting here? Is there something in this whole picture that has been obscured from us for 60 years, 100 years, 200 years? And was it more open in the past and then closed off in the 1930s? This is what they are saying. So I think I would give all of them, well, most of them, a beta category here, that we should listen to them. The next category, I would say alpha, beta, gamma. Gamma is kind of, well, maybe true, but there are holes in the story, or it doesn't all thread together in a comprehensive way. It lacks sufficient detail. Well, it could be right in the end. We could find out if it's correct through more convincing evidence. But at the moment, we have serious doubts. A delta category is when you say, no, this is made up. It's obviously it's made up. It doesn't ring true at all, and it's contradictory. Only very, very occasionally with a gamma and delta would you say, oh my goodness, we completely got that wrong. They are correct, and they are correct in this issue. An epsilon category is one which I've tried to bring in myself. It's one where I'm really not sure. I feel that some of the information rings true. It's correct. It's backed up by good analysis or some artifacts or evidence that is scientific and threads together. However, there's an opposite side to it where no, it's mixed up with things that are implausible. For example, Corey Good, whom I gave a B, later on, after 2016, he started saying there's a parallel Earth, and there's the same, we exist there also. And I thought this was just nonsense. It just doesn't ring true at all. So that's where I think the story becomes mixed up with, his correct testimony becomes mixed up with he's been told something that's implausible, maybe so that people can say, Corey Good, he's talking off the top of his head, it's all imagination. Now, since I've quickly gone through that, it needs more detail later. I want to talk about my own very interesting and shocking experience. And therefore, just pause for a moment, because here I'm telling you the truth. I'm not making this up. I was out in Turkey working in a school, and I was very settled there. I liked the administration, I liked the students, and I liked the teachers I worked with. I was getting full support. And sometimes in teaching you don't. There's a lot of jealousy in teaching and a lot of backbiting, especially if you're doing creative work that people are jealous of, or if you have a good relationship with the kids and your class is doing well and somebody else is struggling a little bit, or if you get a promotion and another teacher doesn't get a promotion. Schools are full of this. And sometimes administrations can also turn against you. It's odd. It can be an odd atmosphere. And international schools are particularly prone to this. But this school I was working in Turkey, which I won't name just now, I was very happy with. And I was there for 8 years. In my second year there, a holiday came up. And I decided to go down to Marmaris on the coast and go across to the island of Rhodos. Now, Rhodos is quite a famous island in the Docklands, and it's been colonized by various peoples over hundreds and hundreds of years. The Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Turks, Jewish, Ladino people. It came under Italian occupation round about Mussolini's time. But in 1306, it was conquered by the Knights Hospitallers, and they built a castle there. And I wanted to go and visit the Knights castle there because I'm interested in the architecture, the artifacts. I wanted to see the weapons. I wanted to look at the history and get a feeling of the place. Well, I took the ferry from Marnus. It was just an hour. Booked into the hotel and went down immediately to take some photographs and to look around. So I walked into the Grand Master's Palace, and it has been partially rebuilt. As I said, it originally belonged to the Knights Hospitallers, but they had to leave Rhodos when it was conquered by the Ottomans. I think it was Mehmet II who eventually conquered it. But the Knights had held out for a long time, and they were there for a considerable period of time, and they brought some wealth to Rhodos. I went into the museum there, and I felt the strangest feeling that I was unwelcome, or there was something there in the air that I didn't like, and I could not put my finger on it. And I was thinking, okay, I'm here on holiday, I'm relaxed. What is it about this place that's giving me the creeps? Really giving me the creeps. I looked at the artifacts, I looked at the flags and banners, I looked around the architecture and the nice gardens. There's some Roman Byzantine mosaics, I looked at that, but to tell you the truth, I couldn't wait to get out. So I exited the museum, went outside, had a cup of coffee and something to eat, and felt tired. And I went back to my hotel room, and I was lying in the bed, just dreaming and thinking, I don't know what's wrong. And suddenly, I was aware of a creature in the room, looking directly at me. And this creature was extremely ugly. And it was part in materialization and part out, but it was projecting itself onto me, right onto my face. And it was denigrating me. It was saying, see you, you're worthless. You're pathetic. You're a pathetic human being. Look at you. Look at you now. You're frightened, aren't you? Yeah, well, you're not going to escape from me because I'm going to hold on to you. And I'm going, what is this? And I'm beginning to feel breathless and think, oh my God, what's that? And I started almost to laugh. Denigrating me, calling me pathetic, weak, stupid, and, very into control. And it had a horrible face. Its face was such that it was demonic. I have a picture of it here, actually. This creature. And this book was printed just 2 years ago. So the person who printed it and the writer who wrote it was Andromedan. And she said that this creature infests our solar system, that controls 77 planets in our galaxy, and it originally came from the Andromeda galaxy. How it came here and how long they've been here, I don't know. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. I thought, I described it to myself, it's one of those grey creatures, it's one of those ugly things that, exist in Area 51, and you hear rumours about them. Anyway, here I was lying in bed, and it's still sniggering at me and laughing in a kind of strange way. And I started to pray, went through my Christian prayers, my Baha'i prayers, just calling on myself, get rid of this thing, And it was still there. and it was sneering at me, and it gave off such malevolence and anger and hatred. I really started to, I found my breathing started to get fast. I think, come on, please, please get, I need help here. And suddenly I saw a flash of light just came and exploded in the room and hit that thing and sent it scurrying. And I was like, what? What was that? And everything opened up for me. Like I could look around and colors were different, and my sense awareness was very heightened. And I thought, wow, this is incredible sensory overload here. What's going on? I got up, I took some water, and I felt very relieved. And I sat for about 5 minutes trying to comprehend the situation, and then I collapsed on the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up and I thought, I need to write this down in a spiritual diary, or a note that this experience I had. And as I was walking around, I noticed that I could see and hear much further than I could previous to this experience, this blinding light. However, that didn't last long. It only lasted maybe an hour and a half. And in one way I was pleased because it was overwhelming. I could actually look at someone maybe 40 meters away and know what they were talking about. And I could see different colors around people. It was my spiritual senses were opened, something that the yoga people and many spiritual people aspire to open up their senses. But I found it too much, and I was hoping it was going to die away, and it did. And I went back to the hotel, got all my stuff, found the last ferry, and went immediately back to Turkey, and went stayed in a hotel in Marmaris for I think 2 days. But I was shaken by the experience. It was really strange. I kept a secret. I didn't talk about it, but it was life-changing. It changed my direction from going here to going there, because I knew now that a lot of the philosophy I had been taught was wrong. And I also knew that the higher spiritual world exists, and that if we rely on our intuition and cultivate our spiritual senses, we can achieve a much better understanding of the world. Later on, when I had talked to a few close family members and a few friends, and they listened, and they were kind of, what's Gordon going on about? He's, what happened in the holiday? But yeah, it stayed with me, and it encouraged me to write. It encouraged me to look at the world. And what I found out was that this grey in fiction, there are different kinds of greys, and this was one species exist in the world. And I started to feel that some people were under their control. And that set me on a course of further research and exploration. Later on, with Kerry Cassidy, I had a meal with her, and she confirmed it to me. She said, yes, you were right. You had a very full-on awakening experience. We were 4 of us sitting in the Bosphorus, and it helped me to understand what had happened. When I came back to the UK in 2016, I still hadn't talked to her about it that much, but a Christian friend said to me, Gordon, maybe there was a demon on you, and you had caught something, and because you'd gone to this holy site, it came out on you and said, no, I don't want to be here, kind of thing. I said, no. I said, it wasn't like that. It was definitely there in the castle. So it existed there, didn't want me there. It was very hostile, and it seemed to be in that territory, seemed to be enveloping there, because when it scattered and left me, it didn't come back, and I hope it never does. later on, when I started to explore Gaia TV and the work of Corey Good had actually mentioned in one of his interviews that the 36th, 37th parallel, that's the latitude parallel, right round the Earth, is an easier gateway for ETs from the fourth, fifth dimension to come into the Earth. So there's certain doors that open there, so it's easier for them to bring their craft in to exist in that part. And that surprised me, because when I talked to my friend again, I said, well, no, I definitely think it was outside me. I looked, and here Rhodos sits 36.4341 degrees latitudes. So it's right on the 36th, 37th parallel. Strangely enough, Area 51 in Groom Lake is on the 37th degree, and also San Francisco. So all the Frisco people out there, you better be careful, because if you're doing Ouija boards or trying to contact the spirits, you might contact the ones that you really don't want to be with, and they might fool you into thinking that they're high spiritual beings. No, they are not. This thing was extremely ugly. I will go now to what Ellen Denan wrote about it. She says this. So bear with me another 5 minutes. The Maitre originate from two home planets in the Andromeda galaxy, which they call Megope. Their empire spans 77 worlds, and they are often referred to as the Megope plague. While many cultures view them as parasites, some have formed alliances of mutual interest with them, such as the Siakar and the Nebu, also negative reptilians and negative greys. I'm sorry that, as I said, the universe is much older than we are. We are a relatively young race. And so these bad guys have existed for thousands and even millions of years. Of the same average height as humans, this race of hermaphrodites with long-shaped face, elongated skull, and long, slim neck carries a very mean expression on their face. Their lifespan is usually 120 Earth years. Their motivation is rage, hate, and assimilation. Well, maybe Freudian Jung, the Jungian and Freudian trained psychologists could find out what really pissed them off to get them into such a horrible state. There you go. These creatures out in space carry their own difficulties. Their ships are large, dark, and discoidal, with a circular row of lights and a huge aperture underneath. Their insignia is a black inverted triangle crossed by 3 lines on a red background. The Maitre have been visiting Earth for a long time and attempting to colonize it on many occasions. However, they have been consistently thwarted. Undeterred, they have successfully colonized 26 other planets in this galaxy. However, the Maitre openly carried out abductions of humans, either for their own interests, such as slave trafficking to mines in Terra's moon and Mars, as well as the slave trade with other species, primarily the reptilians, or in coalition with the Earth deep state. Yes, the deep state, you're there, I know, and you're the ones that are keep the Gaza war going. Isn't that correct? You think you're going to win? Well, you're not. And the Jewish people themselves are turning against you. Yeah, you're torturing the children and the people there. Now stop. Just stop now, because we've had enough of it and you're falling down. You're finished. That's correct. Okay, I'll calm down now. Good news is that the white hats in our Earth military are now turning against and clearing out their bases here on Earth, clearing out the solar system. There are still some sections still operating, though, in high positions of power. And with that, let's say a prayer for peace. Let's hope that we can come together as a human race and solve our problems. I still hope that the best of the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, the Taoists, and all the wonderful people I've met over the world, and particularly the Baha'is, might come together and focus and bring our civilization up to a higher standard than it is at the moment. But maybe we have to clear out the rubbish first and tidy up the garden and get rid of all the waste. So I think this is an opportune moment, and at this point I should stop here, and I'll look at the other whistleblowers later, and forgive me if I get a little bit angry, because in Palestine, and here I'm also including the Jewish people who are also suffering, the children there are being, their limbs are being blown off, and they're being operated on, if they're lucky, without anesthetics, and they're starving, and it's a torture, and this is all traced back to the friends of the Maitre, the Siaka reptilians. David Icke talked about this, and there have been other whistleblowers, but I should stop here and not get into the politics of it too much. Thank you for listening, and say a prayer for peace and for health and for a better life. Good luck.